how close is too close of a relationship to have with your tenants? And that's really a really hard question to really answer. It's kind of a fine line because a lot of landlords, especially if they manage the property themselves, that's actually usually one of the aspects that they enjoy, not just saving money because you don't have a property management, but just that they get to actually be involved in their property and in the families that are living in their properties. They get to be involved in the entire experience, and so they really enjoy that. But sometimes it makes it difficult if you're too close with your tenants, and then sometimes you can get really emotionally involved, and that's not necessarily a bad thing always, but it can make the business side of being a landlord very tricky. Maybe a tenant has something come up in their life, and now they can't pay rent for a couple months. They're going to need help. But then maybe you have a couple other tenants and they hear about that same story and they try to pull the same thing and get some free rent out of you, but maybe you know that that's not the same case with them, but you have to treat them both fairly. Tenants can really take advantage of the situation. Obviously there's good and there's bad tenants, but there is such a thing as trying to keep those separate, trying to keep the business aspect and the relationship aspect separated. That's really where a good property management company will come in there, is they can kind of be that third party, that there's no awkwardness there. They're just doing their job as a representative. Same thing as a real estate agent. They're doing a job as a representative, so it's a little bit less awkward for agents to talk as opposed to a buyer and seller to talk, because sometimes there's emotions that get involved and it can get heated sometimes if someone wants to offer less on a property and someone thinks their home is more valuable because they have an emotional relationship there. Same thing with a landlord and a tenant. If there's an emotional relationship there, it's not a bad thing to have good relationships with people that you do business with. It can just be sometimes tricky because how long is too long for that tenant that you know and like not to pay their rent? And now you maybe look like a jerk if you can't afford them to not pay rent too much. There's just a lot. It can get really tricky really quickly. So it's a good thing. It's always a good thing to maintain a good standing with your tenants. But as far as getting too involved in the everyday life, everyday emotions, it's kind of the same principle of doing business with your family, doing business with your friends. You don't really want to get involved too much unless it's something that you're willing to completely lose. I would say the same thing about renting to a friend, unless you don't want to do something that would sacrifice that relationship. So I would never lend money to a friend without expecting that might never get returned to me. So same thing, keep that relationship professional and business as much as possible. And then property management will help solve that sometimes, of being able to take that out so you don't have to deal with the business things and maybe the hurt relationship there.